questions we wrestle with as Christians about who God is, how do we live out our faith, what is the Bible, what is the truth of the Bible, what are we supposed to believe, how are we supposed to live. There are really big, deep questions that we ask each other, that we ask God, that we wrestle with ourselves. And that's why the Cultivate podcast exists, to help us go deeper in our understanding of who God is, His Word, and the way that He's called us to live. Hey everyone, welcome to the Cultivate podcast for the Grove Church. I'm Charlie Loften, I'm the lead pastor there, and we are here again.
It's me.
It's me.
Hi.
It's Natalie Fink, our Grove Kids director. Grove Kids, 2 words, capital G, capital K, the rest lowercase.
Yes.
Like normal words, Grove Kids.
Just like normal words.
Like Grove Kids.
Not Grove Kids.
Not Grove Kids.
Grove.
Grove
No.
Kids. Grove
We're not
Kids.
screaming at anyone.
Yep. And we have been discussing for the last couple of episodes, after our long systematic theology section, we've been talking about how to teach it to kids. So we started with kind of like the what and the why.
Right.
And now we're at how. We did how.
Uh-huh.
And now it's potpourri.
Could be anything.
Could be anything. Movies, any movie related questions? I've seen a couple of movies recently.
I should have thought of that. No.
And
we'll
our
see if you
producer, Abigail, who is not with us right now, says that I should point out to people who are watching on video that we're obviously in a different spot. And she says it doesn't look good, but it's not her fault. That's because right behind in our normal spot is Christmas.
Right.
And I don't know if we wanted to date this as Christmas. Is it?
I know.
Well,
We should
there's
have
no Christmas here.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get a tree.
So
I will turn it over to you because you are the one that is asking the question.
Okay.
So hand it over to you, Natalie.
Let's get to it. I wanted to start with things that I've been thinking about that have come up in my own household with my own kids. And something that I have found to be tricky is making theological topics interesting.
Right.
One of my 2 kids is a little bit more go with the flow than the other. The other one, just if it doesn't sound fun, doesn't care. And so I didn't know if maybe you had some tips from when you were doing that with your own kids or anything that you thought of.
This may come across as a really hot take. I don't know, but I don't know that I would just like, no, 6-year-old, you must learn theology. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Let the game come to you a little bit.
Okay.
I mean, if they have these many questions, I just have a small number of questions. I'm answer these questions, and I'm not gonna make you think about these things until your brain and interest are expanding.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly would not want learning about God and learning about theology to get into the same category that math gets into sometimes with my kids. And this is as a math major. I know you're
married
your
to a math teacher.
Math teacher. He's the math
He's
teacher.
the math
He's
teacher.
the math teacher. Anyways, I mean, it's just kind of where all of a sudden you just kind of have a negative association with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't necessarily force it. Honestly, with kids your age, like younger kids, I feel like most of teaching theology is more response as opposed to just kind of proactively. Today, kids, we're going to discuss pneumatology and whether or not there's a second blessing of the Holy Spirit. But it just like you'll just find yourself like at church and like teacher says I'm supposed to listen to when God talks to me, but I don't ever think I've ever heard God's voice out loud. Well, that's not exactly what we mean by the phrase God talking to you.
Uh-huh.
And I think having a real responsive heart as opposed to it feeling like this is just another task in my things that I have to do. And if I'm not doing it and I'm not doing it well, it can become just one more thing. I'm not doing great as a parent or spiritual leader.
Right. Oh man, that hits a little hard for me. Thank you for saying that. Because I do think there is this pressure to be doing more than I'm doing. So releasing some of that is great.
Yeah. I mean, leaning on, maybe it's because of my background, leaning on kids that they must be interested in it really just starts to put in their heads that church, God is a have to / burden as opposed to get to joyful experience.
Right.
Especially, and as we're just talking about me and you, right? Being on staff at a church, so much of your kids' spiritual development is going to be mandatory.
Right.
Right? If you're still on staff when they're in the youth group, it's not going to be like they get to opt out.
Right. Yeah.
You
They're
know?
here. I'm here.
You know,
They're here.
You help lead a community Advent service.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't ask them on the way out of the door, hey,
You want to come?
you guys want to come? You know, there's just so much that's required.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Other places where you can dial that back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I think gives them the freedom to kind of make spiritual growth and spiritual exploration something that they own.
Mm-hmm.
Again, rather than another science class.
Right. Well, I do feel like we're in a good time of year to do fun things with it. You know, as we're doing, like in my house, we do something special every Sunday of Advent. I think that helps a little bit, but just, you know, on a regular Wednesday in February, you know, we don't have those fun special things. Okay. So I don't have to make it something more than it really needs to be.
And honestly, I think kids like asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the more it can be just letting them ask questions. Hey, so what have you been talking about at church, or what do you think about this? When you think about God, what kind of questions do you have? And just kind of let them ask their own, like where their brain is, as opposed to some sort of curriculum telling you this is where I want your brain to be right now.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful for me, for sure. Okay. So maybe this will kind of answer my next question.
Right.
I don't know, but I'm thinking for this one, both at home and in kids ministry, what are your thoughts on incentivizing? So like if you memorize a scripture, if you know 4 catechism questions, do you feel like incentivizing those things is valuable, or could it be hurtful? Are
we talking about like you shouldn't have to be given a piece of candy to learn the scriptures? You should just want to do it on. Like, is that like the opposite of that?
I guess so.
Oh man, I mean, a kid is a kid.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and we go to great lengths in the auditorium to make things visually appealing and, you know, an illustration that makes sense, and try to make the music engaging and the teaching engaging. We do everything that we can to kind of craft what we say and how we structure the service in a way that will elicit the best responses based on our perception of the audience.
Right.
Well, I got a 7-year-old, right? What is the best way to, I mean, good job. I mean, and not to get into, you know, freshman psychology class, but I think that sort of, you did something good and something good happened. I think that's the best way to motivate. Certainly if the contrast is punishing for not, or expecting that a young elementary age kid is going to just naturally have some sort of internal drive, because that is the one thing that you can't teach. And I talk about this at all ages. You know, there are things that we can do. I can accurately communicate information. I can accurately communicate information in a way that on average might be more motivational than other sorts of styles. But the things that matter the most, like heart changes, are things you can't really have control over.
Right.
So in the absence of that, I at least want them to have positive associations with being at church, having these sorts of conversations. And so if they don't really have a whole lot of questions and they're not necessarily motivated to learn, but they remember that you were kind and you made it fun. And this is a play, like I say, I've said this to multiple Grove Kids directors and youth directors and all these things. Like, one of our primary goals is that at whatever age, anywhere between 6 and 18, or even after they're gone and they've graduated, at the point in which they start asking big questions, what I want them to think about church is it was a good place with kind, loving people that were happy to be asked questions and answer questions. They may not have questions right now, but you've created an environment that is fun, that is enjoyable, that is loving, and says, we want questions.
Encourages it.
And so then at 19, 20, when they start asking big picture questions about life, at least somewhere in their brain is, wait a second. Church is a place where nice people want you to ask questions, and they will give you thoughtful, reasonable answers to those questions. I'm going to go back there.
Okay.
Hopefully those things happen between the ages of 6 and 18.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like this thing is dragging on me. And there are people what listen to the podcast that get really, really mad if the mic moves away. And so I just got to make sure it's kind of slowly drifting on me.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay. So something else I've been dealing with in my house is when we sit down for a family prayer, either at mealtime or at bedtime, my kids are just all over the place. Mm-hmm. They are not interested in sitting quietly. Now, sometimes they're interested in giving a prayer request, which I think is great, and I love that. But I often get frustrated because they don't yet have this reverence that we have when we're praying. And so what do you think? What do you think we should do about that?
This reminds me a little bit like if I'm giving relationship advice to somebody about like, okay, let me tell you what my wife is like. My wife is like this. My wife is like this. My husband's like this. My husband's like this. My husband's like this. Or parenting advice. My teenager, she da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just kind of going, oh. And it all sounds really bad, like the way that they describe it. And I'm kind of going, And then in the end, I'm like, well, congratulations. You have one. Right. And you can trade that one in for a different one. And then, but you're still going to have one.
Yeah.
And, sometimes my kindergarten and second grade year old kids are really spastic and wild during prayer time and don't seem particularly interested.
Especially at
bedtime when they're exhausted and cranky anyway.
And not interested in bedtime either.
Right. And they're fully exhausted from a day at school and they're overstimulated.
For sure.
And they won't sit down for a quiet, reverent, holy moment of prayer.
No, they won't.
Okay. Like
when you put it that way.
I don't know how to respond to that. Okay. What's your question?
So then because we want to have these rhythms where we have, for example, when we're talking about bedtime, where we have this routine at night, and part of that is a prayer. And we don't want to get rid of that, but do we just kind of let go and let them be crazy and continue to pray and just hope that they will one day get there? What do you think?
The very first Christmas Eve service I did here at the Grove, we had family service, kids in there. We had a block in there for me to give a little 15-minute mini sermon. At about 9 minutes, I called it and prayed and ended. The next year, I was like, okay, well, let's just cut that to 8.
Yeah.
And at 5 minutes, I prayed and was done. And now it is just simply the part I just get up there and say, hey, we're taking communion now. And here's why and how. And then I sit down. Yeah. There's a sense in which you just kind of have to read the room.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if you say, hey, I want to instill this prayer as a real value in our family. Sometimes, okay, guys, we're going to pray. And you've kind of got them by the wrists and you're like, dear God, thanks for a great day. And I just pray that we'll get some good rest and have a great day tomorrow. Amen. And toss them in the bed. Okay. And every now and then you'll catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I pray tonight, Mom?
Right.
Absolutely. Sure you can pray tonight. Yeah. And let that happen. And so if rhythm matters to you, create the rhythm, but also you're going to have to adjust to what you're handed on that particular night.
I do see some glimmers of hope once in a while.
There.
Oh, my 5-year-old prayed about how God's love was a waterfall the other day. Aww. And it was the cutest. So we'll get there.
She's 5. If I can say this to you and say to everybody else on the other end of the microphone or the camera, they're 5, they're 7, they're 13.
Yeah.
They are still developmentally growing and are going to have wild swings and moods and interests. And there's going to be seasons where anything that you're into, they're necessarily against.
Right.
And sometimes that's going to be, we had a bad day. We're having a bad week. And eventually kids are going to be old enough to have a bad year.
Yeah.
At least with respect to their interest in anything that you have to say.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
And you can't, unless you were going to become a hyper controlling kind of person, you're just going to have to deal with the fact that we have kids.
Right.
It is a consequence of allowing our kids to have a measure of freedom.
Yeah.
Which we, by and large, my instincts are to give freedom with guardrails. And that means you're just, the kid is going to be the kid. And so then I say to you and any other parent, just deep breaths. And if all that you accomplished that day was you kept them alive and healthy and got them through a 24 hours, that was a great day.
Good on you. Yeah.
Not every day is going to be a great day as far as you achieving all of these other goals that you have.
Okay. Well, as you're talking about, we want them to have freedom. That made me think it's hard for us to not want to just push on them what we believe and what we think is right and just have them obey. So how do we kind of cultivate, or I guess help them grow into their own faith instead of just obey and do it and believe it because mom and dad say so? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult kind of balance because there's a lot of things, they're going to have to just kind of figure that out on their own at some point. But there are also some things we don't let them figure out on their own at some point. We don't, like traffic patterns, right? Parking lot safety, those sorts of things. I mean, there are certain things that are serious enough where, you don't get to figure these things out on your own. And so I would say there's a difference between giving them freedom to be like, hey, we'll just explore any religion that you're interested in at this time. And, it's like, no, this is what we believe. This is what is true. Like, when say, Dad, what do you think about evolution? I'm going to answer that question differently to my 9-year-old. I don't have a 9-year-old anymore. Than my 9-year-old, than I would my 15-year-old, than I would some random 30-year-old that goes to the church.
Right.
And so, no, this is what we believe, or sex and sexuality. Dad, somebody in my class today said blah, 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 blah. And I give less and less diplomatic answers depending on how young they are. And so we don't have freedom of ideas. And when I talk about freedom, it's more like you have to be motivated to do this right now. You have to want, in this moment, you have to want to pray.
Okay.
Is different than, well, who do you want to pray to tonight?
Gotcha.
And so there is going to come a point where obviously they are going to start exploring on their own. And so that's why I think it is really important. I am teaching them the truth. And as they get older, and here's why some other people think differently than that, and you kind of add these pieces in. And I think it's also important to always be cultivating when they ask a question, to never respond with the equivalent of, we don't ask that kind of, we don't ask that kind of, we don't talk about that. When your 8-year-old comes home from school and says, Dad, what's a lesbian? And you go, don't say that word in this house. Like, you know what I mean? Like freak out. Like, where did you hear that word? Okay. Here's what that word means. Tell me the context in which you heard it.
For sure.
I'm genuinely curious.
Yes,
Like,
I'd love to know.
As opposed to freaking out that they've heard something different than maybe what you would want them to hear at a particular age, or to be exposed to certain things. I mean, things I've said this for a long time. I want my kids to be exposed to weird ideas and different ideas while they're still young enough where my opinion matters.
Absolutely.
And so to not freak out at questions, not freak out that they're being exposed to, what you might consider to be an age inappropriate topic or dangerous ideas or whatever. Oh, that's a really good question.
Yeah.
What if God doesn't exist, Mom? oh, okay, well, there are some people that don't believe that, but if you look at that, and then just and to not be like, why would you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Because
then they're never going to ask anything
right,
again.
then they're never going to ask
Yeah.
another question.
Yeah.
Asking questions here is bad.
Yeah.
Right? The number one rule to a peaceful life at the Dursleys growing up for Harry Potter was don't ask questions.
Pretend like you're not there.
Right. Like
Yeah.
we don't want to even have a glimpse of that.
Right. I like that. Okay, ready to pivot a little bit? Okay. How do you know a kid is ready to be baptized?
I always am. I want it to be their initiative, right? I would not say, "Are you ready to get baptized? Are you ready to get baptized? You ready to get baptized?" I would let it be at their initiative. I mean, obviously, you're exposing them at church and at home to the idea of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Anytime somebody gets baptized, we bring all the kids in there, and so they are aware of it. And so, to me, it being their initiative is important. That's number one. And then you start talking to them, and here's the thing. This is going to make me, as with most things, this is probably people on both sides of this will be like, I didn't like what he said. So when I talk to kids, 10% of kids are theological geniuses. You're like, so what is it? Why do you want to get baptized? Well, because I have invited Jesus into my heart. And I was like, what does that mean? It's like, well, I'm a sinner, and because I'm a sinner, I need to be forgiven in order for me to have a relationship with God, and Jesus died on the cross, and he died so I don't have to. You're like, what are you, 40?
Right.
Like talking to the 7-year-old theology student. Like 10% are in that category. You don't really have any questions there. 10% of them, I don't know. It looks fun. I like water. Like, oh.
My sister did it.
Right. It's the 80% in the middle that you kind of wonder about because especially interacting with me, a kid interact with me, it's probably a little bit better with you.
Yeah.
When the kids interact with you. I mean, it's an awkward situation. An adult I don't normally talk to is now asking me deep theological questions.
Right.
You're going to get nervous, half-hearted, confused. You're not getting them at their best.
No.
But at some point they had some conversation with their parent that at least led the parent to believe, I think they understand enough. Right. And so I'll then explain to them what I believe that it means. And then I'll ask them, is that what you believe? And they'll always say yes. And so then then you have to really at this point, you're deferring to the parents. Right. Like if you believe, you've had conversations with them, if you believe I'm good. I made a decision. This has been several years ago. I would rather baptize a kid who has a small amount of, I have a 7-year-old's worth of faith, and we responded to that and said, I'm so excited for that. We want you to be baptized, and then come back at 19 and be like, I didn't know anything. What even was that? I need to get baptized again at some church where they go to college. I'd rather that happen than to look at a 7-year-old and say,
yeah, no, I don't think so.
I don't think that you're serious enough about this yet for us to include you. Right. And so I always err on the side of yes. Yeah. Again, the 10% of it looks fun and I just like water. Like, no. Right. But in that, and like, I would rather them think they took the little bit amount of faith that I had and they responded to me, which is just going to put them, this is a loving, encouraging, welcoming place. And as their faith expands at some point at 12, 16, 18, 20, 25, they're going to have some deeper moments where they strip off, this is my parents' faith to this is my faith. And maybe they will look back at their being baptized and say, that was insufficient. I want to do it again. Or they may look and say like, well, I mean, that's what I did. I mean, I look at 7-year-old Charlie's. I mean, he understood the gospel as deeply as a 7-year-old could. Right. But Charlie, do you know for sure that you were saved at 7? I'm like, come on.
I know I'm saved now. So
right. And I don't look back on but I know that some people in my same situation would have gotten rebaptized at 19.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that. I just want to, if a kid comes with a mustard seed's worth of faith, I want to respond to it.
So as a parent, if your child is asking about baptism, if they seem serious about it, they're not just, willy-nilly, like you said, oh, it looks fun, then take steps to move forward.
You've got one overthinking parent and one underthinking parent for the most part, right?
Right.
If you can both agree, you're good. If you're both like overthinkers, you might want to consider some outside counsel.
Right. Yeah.
If you're both underthinkers, you probably should also consider some outside counsel.
Right.
But if you've kind of in balance, if you both agree,
okay.
Again, I don't think that you're doing damage to a kid. Again, this is a hot take in some circles. I don't think you're doing damage to a kid by taking their small amount of faith and responding to it by allowing them to get baptized.
Yeah, I like that.
But you know your kid well enough to be like, there's a line that I feel like I want you to hit as far as your ability to repeat back to me, what does Jesus died on the cross means. Like, I appreciate what you're saying. I love what you're saying, but it's a little bit deeper than that. And so I want us to keep having the conversation.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I think that's a really good thing. So I want to get baptized. That's a great idea. I mean, getting baptized is a really important thing. It's about just telling people that you're following Jesus. I would love to talk with you about that some more. Maybe let's talk about it next week.
Yeah. Okay.
And then give them the opportunity to still be interested in getting baptized next week.
Yeah, I like that idea. That's good.
Right? You're not necessarily
like,
blowing.
Okay, let's do it tomorrow.
I'm not blowing it all. I'm not blowing them off.
Yeah.
But I'm giving at least a little bit of.
Yeah.
Is it just because your friend got baptized yesterday at church?
Right.
Or is there something going on here? Some people, I think, take that too far. My kid's been hassling me for a year.
Yeah.
And so, but I think there may be just something in there. But again, I don't want to say that a kid can't get baptized until they've satisfied some arbitrary idea that you have in your head, because the reality is, I baptized adults that I'm like, I don't know what that was.
Right.
I can't know.
Exactly.
And I'm going to defer to the parent, but the reality is parent can't really know either, regardless of the age.
Right. So they can feel it out.
Yeah.
They can discuss with their
And at our church, you will find just a warm, helpful, supportive place.
Yes, for sure. I love that. Okay. How do you teach about the Holy Spirit? I know I'm going all over the place, but I was told that I could.
No, that is a really good question, because it is so. It's just complicated. I mean, you start saying things like ghosts, Holy Ghost, or spirits, those kinds of things, and comes to live inside you, and
feels weird.
Depending on what level of shows that they've watched, they might have some idea about what a ghost or a spirit is, or some idea of a harmful or a silly idea of a ghost coming inside. I mean, there's just, you can't really, it's a really difficult concept, I think, to explain even to an adult.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the idea that you can't see God, and that God is everywhere, and then when you believe in Jesus, the God that is everywhere comes to work inside your heart and mind to kind of help you to become better. Most people, have some sort of internal dialogue, right? I said, so when at some point when you put your faith in Jesus, one of those voices inside your head is going to be God putting his voice in there. And we need to learn how to listen to that particular one. And here's some ways that you can recognize that, because, I think that's a concept that people understand. Feels like I've got a lot of different things rolling around in my head. Well, eventually God's going to come in there and assert himself as one of those, because, right now, if God is everywhere, you can imagine that God as a spirit kind of whispering in your ear, hey, I want you to do better. But then what Jesus says is that when you become his, that not only will he be outside trying to encourage you to be the better, but he actually talks to you inside your own brain and your own heart.
Yeah.
And not only is talking to you, but is encouraging you and giving you power and strength. And so I think you can talk about it in those terms where it feels a little less.
Yeah. Halloween.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Movies. Yeah. No, I like that.
But it's probably one of the biggest questions I've gotten. It's like, how do I know when God's speaking to me?
Yeah. That's a hard question to answer.
Yeah. And if you're answering that with an 8-year-old, I mean, probably most 30-year-olds would be like, can I sit in on that?
Yeah. Right.
I get that question a lot. All ages. I think it's a little bit like this is kind of what I do. A kid asks you, Mom, where do babies come from? They come from their mama's bellies, and leave it at that. And that's sufficient for them. That's sufficient for them. Well, God makes everybody. And that's really all that they're asking.
Right.
Heidi my wife was a classic over answerer of that question. Sitting there with a 5-year-old Melee asked that question, and Heidi went into an answer, and I was just kind of like, I don't know that she's tracking with you anymore, but okay, you just go. But it was kind of, but that's always kind of been our vibe, which is we want to fully answer a question.
Yeah.
With that one, it's kind of similar. If you were to say to me, Charlie, if you were to ask me right now, I would be like, Natalie, kind of what's got that question on your mind right now? What do you? Well, Grandma died, right? It's going to be. There's usually it's going to be attached to something,
right? I was watching the news,
right, and so, and depending on what that something is, I'll just keep it in that pocket.
Okay.
I mean, volumes of books have been written on this topic, and it is probably the number one topic that has been discussed over the last, not just 2,000 years of Christianity, but the book of Job is probably the oldest of all the books in the Old Testament. And that is what that talks about.
Yeah.
And so it is not something that you can. I've got an answer for that. No, you don't have it. I mean, you have thoughts about it,
right?
And so I think the best thing to do is to keep it in the pocket, right? I know why. What's on your mind? Well, because we just got back from this funeral. We were watching the news today at school, and it talked about this, and so to keep it around that, where it's just like, well. Everybody dies, and we're just created in a way. We're only here for a limited time, and God knows that. And he comes down here and he tries to, and that's why he offers us life after this. Or if it's like bad guy did something on TV, it's like, well, God allows us to make bad choices, and sometimes you make a bad choice and you hurt yourself. Sometimes you make a bad choice and it hurts other people. And God allows us to make these bad choices, and that's why he sent Jesus. Right. And then feel it out again. Like, where do babies come from? Their mom's bellies.
Are we good with that?
And then they're gone. It's like, okay, that's really kind of all we wanted today.
Right. See where it goes.
The bad stuff is what we did, and God lets us make bad choices. Okay. And they're gone.
Yeah.
He's like, but he could stop it. Well, if there weren't any bad consequences to bad choices, then we would keep making bad choices. Some people think that maybe God, there should be some restraint on that. Don't let really, really bad things come from that. And I understand that, but it's really just God has given us the freedom to make bad choices, and you put this many of us together, especially people who don't really believe in God at all, and just bad things are going to happen sometimes. Right. And so just try to, you're wanting a little bit more. Oh, you want a little bit more,
Yeah.
and just kind of make it real interactive.
Right. Don't start with, here's everything I know about this.
Well, let me tell you about the guy. Here are the 3 philosophies from all of Job's friends and how they're all wrong. And well, God is loving, God is holy, and God is this. And so there's 3 different. I mean, I've got that. I mean, I can pull out the whiteboard and draw all sorts of things, but you know, I think we want to keep the question the size of the question that it's asking,
right?
Because an over-asked question, an over-answered question, can feel like an unanswered question.
Yeah, you're right. If that's not
that's
what
really
they were expecting,
that's really not what I meant.
No,
right.
That's not what I meant. I didn't want the whole thing. I just wanted you to meet me where I am here.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. Let's see. Let's talk about. What does forgiveness look like with kids? I know we need to model that and not force it. But what do you think is the best way to handle that?
I think the best thing that you can do is model it for yourself. Because sometimes it's you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you had a fight and it was your fault. Sometimes you're the one that actually lost control first.
Yeah, for sure.
And to model to them that I'm willing to apologize, I think that is the best teacher of it.
Yeah.
Right? I think it is also important to overtly talk about grace as the way that God doesn't love us only when we do well, but he gives us good things even when we don't. I'll tell you the story about my kids watching American Idol. I told you this story. Did we talk about that here on this podcast?
I can't remember now if we talked about it here, where we talked about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, there was a time they'd been really ugly and I punished them and told them they couldn't watch American Idol. And then after a few minutes, I went upstairs and we just talked about grace and what it meant to be forgiven. And sometimes you get things you don't deserve. And that's probably at least 20 years ago. The kids still bring it up. And to me, it was just like, I'm probably mostly motivated out of the fact that I felt sad that they weren't getting to watch American Idol. And I was like, I gotta figure out some way to get them down here without looking like I'm too much of a pushover.
Right.
And it actually ended up being really impactful.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make your kid's heart be repentant. And I think that is a challenge that we failed a little bit with our oldest, who still sets the bar for me amongst not only our kids, but all kids that I've ever met, as far as really what strong-willed can look like. And you can make someone say things, you can make someone do things, but you can't make someone feel something.
Right. Can't cause a heart change.
Right. But you can. It's like, hey, it is important for you to learn how to really be sad when you've done something that hurt somebody. It's clear that you're not. And so this is the consequence that you have. But while you're experiencing this consequence, I would also like for you to consider that your heart needs to get to this place. We for a while there, we were punishing in the hopes that eventually enough punishment would bring the heart change.
Right. And
it led to some mediocre parenting that we can joke about now, 25 plus years later. But I think we feel like we have some control over to make someone repentant in their heart. Yeah. When really all that we can do is we can make them say that they're sorry and we can make them face a consequence, but we can't make them be sorry.
Right.
And so to feel like that you can do what you can, but don't feel like you have to do more than what you're even capable of doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'll often say, how can we make it right? What do you need to do to make it right? Instead of saying, go say sorry.
That's good.
I don't know if that's exactly the direction, but it does seem to help, because then it's their decision, how they handle it.
Right.
Now, if it's a poor decision, we'll have to have another conversation.
Right.
But it does seem to help.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that is helpful. It's good to be reminded of all these things and really appreciate your perspective on all these things. I wanted to see if you have any resources you'd recommend for our listeners.
Well, here's my initial response to that. Like if somebody came to me and said, Charlie, do you have any resources for kids or for parents and teaching their kids around theology? Honestly, 99 times out of 100, if somebody came up to me in church and asked that question, you know what I would say?
I have an idea, but go ahead.
You should talk to Natalie.
That's what I thought you would say.
So you asked me, do I have any good resources? I'm like, well, you should ask Natalie. Wait, Natalie's here.
Hey, I am here.
You probably honestly have more access to great resources for kids parenting and stuff than I do on this. Do you have any?
I do. Well, there's one book in particular that I've brought up earlier in a different episode, but it's called Habits of the Household by Justin Earley. And it has just really helped me with my family kind of think of how we talked about habit stacking, adding things that are good rhythms into things that you're already doing. So that's a great book. I would totally recommend. The Truth and Grace memory book set. There are 3 books for different age groups by Thomas Askell, I think is how you say it. We have the one I think it's the youngest group, and I haven't gone through it just a ton, but I've liked it so far. It's mainly catechism based, but a really cool way to just start from the beginning with theological truths with your kids. Kind of in that same vein, the New City Catechism for Kids. We have a copy here, and it's 52 questions, and it's this little tiny book. It's funny because it was like $2 or $3. And I didn't know it was going to be like the size of the palm of my hand. And when it came in, I was like, no wonder. But it's really cool. If you're wanting to get into catechism for kids. So if you go to the Grove, I'd love to get you one. And then I've also discovered the Cross-Formed Kidmin podcast. It's the authors of the book that I was referencing in earlier episodes. It's, I would say, mainly for kidmin folks, but parents can definitely glean some things from it too. It's been really good. And then the book also mentioned the Tiny Theologians Apostles' Creed cards, which is something I would like to look into. I don't have that. I haven't seen it. But sounds like a really cool way to teach that too, which that's something I'm interested in. So I think that's a good start. Yeah,
Bible Project has some really good
Bible
stuff, some really good videos and things.
Yes, the Books of the Bible ones I think are awesome that illustrate the whole book. I think that's so cool. Yeah.
And then there is a book that I would recommend for parents. Like if you're just like, I don't know if I know theology well enough to even talk about it. There's a book by Grudem called 20 Things Every Christian Should Know.
Yeah.
And that's just a really good intro, like for you. And then it's like, it's also a good thing. Well, these are 20 questions that I can talk to then my kids about. Like I feel like I learned something by reading this chapter, and then I can translate that down a level. It's like it's really user friendly. I mean, I wouldn't recommend an 11-year-old read it, but I mean, I think you definitely read it with your teenager for sure. But I think if it would be a really helpful first step for a parent, but then because they're all framed in as questions, then it can be a really good launching pad to then
conversation starter,
teach it down to your kids.
That's great. Thank you.
So thank you for 3 episodes worth of really, really good questions. And thank you for your heart for our kids and for parenting and just having a really curious heart. And I just thank you for being part of the podcast. You killed it. Regardless of how nervous you might have thought you were, all you did was dominate. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
Thank all of you for joining us, and encourage you to go to our website, thegrovechurch.org. If you're not a part of our church, you can figure out, there's ways there right there on the front page how you can get connected. You can ask us a question. You want things for the podcast, you can learn about our church on Sunday morning, whether you want to worship with us online or in person. We would love to meet you, connect with you, and join us next week. We're starting a new series on parables and encourage you to come back. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you for listening to the Cultivate podcast. Our hope is that you are taking steps to go deeper in your faith, that you are asking big questions and you're looking for answers. We hope that we can be a resource for you through our podcast and any other way that we can help you. You can find all our episodes anywhere that you can find podcasts, including YouTube. And again, thank you so much for joining us.